Good afternoon. In this special conversation and show with Mr. Paul Divakar of the National Campaign for Dalit Human Rights, we will discuss specifically the whole issue, not just of Dalit identity, but the issue of dignity and the question of the socio-economic structure and the caste system that continues 7 decades after independence to humiliate and crush a large section of India's population. Mr. Divakar, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this show. Paul, specifically, let's begin with Gujarat, because the march from Ahmedabad to Una is on. On Independence Day this year, they will reach Una.
And on 31st, they're having a huge, August 31st, they're having a huge demonstration in Rajkot. Dalits of India Unite is the slogan.
So following up from the march, you're going to have a huge...
From the march, yes.
And how many Dalits do you expect to participate?
At least a lakh, and we are hoping more than that. I think it's going to be a real show that we are not willing to take this anymore.
What is the significance of this march and this agitation?
I don't think you can view this whole incident in isolation, Teesta. I think that's what you've been also saying. And we've been seeing this whole thing. And very strangely, somewhere, this year has been a watershed of this whole thing.
Rohit Vemula's
Vemula is there, and the Una incidents and several such incidents. And something that we hope will not happen, but has happened, that in the judicial system, you have the caste system really apparent, crushing the emerging Dalit judges. And one case also has been brought to your notice, which is of Judge Ramakrishna from Raichoti in Andhra Pradesh. And when such instances come...
Can you tell us a little bit about that incident?
Mr. Ramakrishna is a Dalit judge, and he has been called one night by the medical officer of the hospital, Raichoti Hospital, to come and take the dying declaration. And in that dying declaration, he noted the contents which this person has given and has sealed it. And 5 days later, that person died. And then all hell broke loose, because this person has indicted one lawyer, Pawan Kumar, who happens to be who's the brother of the sitting High Court Judge Justice C.V. Nagarjuna Reddy. And this, what Judge Ramakrishna says is, he has been asked many times and ordered and abused on the phone, how dare, knowing that you have put the name of my brother in the dying declaration, you must erase it. And then he came after about a week, I heard, and called this judge to his home, beat him black and blue, and he abused him with such language which even to hear that language is so not just infuriating, but it's almost like you're talking about worms, and you're talking about people who have any dignity in that thing. So, and then started the whole thing, incriminating false evidence against this judge, suspension and transfer, and again suspended him. And now he's totally suspended. He's on the streets. He's given a complaint to the Chief Justice, which again referred it back to the same High Court, who has negated him. There's a whole chain of mafia. It's basically, he has unearthed the red sander smuggling.
Well, you're talking about the judiciary, the higher judiciary here, High Court. We are talking about the Hyderabad Central University, where Rohit Vemula's case happened, again an Institute of Higher Learning. I don't know if you know about this case of Chhattisgarh, where one judge, a Dalit judge, was dismissed sine die simply because he was extremely fairly giving bail to the wrongly arrested Adivasis. And he was dismissed. I mean, there was not even a suspension. So you're seeing a series of actions by governments, judiciary, institutions of higher learning. What does this tell you about the caste system, its nature, and its connection to politics?
I think really you've raised a critical point, Teesta. One, what does incidents like Una and similar forceful, the whole aspect of the manual scavenging, I think at least we are celebrating the Magsaysay Award to Wilson Bai.
And then 125, the Bhim Yatra.
The Bhim Yatra that has been. There's one side you see Dalits very clearly forced into these menial occupations, like manual scavenging, like sewage cleaning, like forced into skinning of animals. You know, skinning of animals is not a choice that Dalits have made. It has been, you know, for ages, for 3,000, 4,000 years, they have been forced into all menial and manual occupations, right from the hardest of agricultural labor, grave digging work, the whole lot of scavenging and sewerage and manual scavenging work, and on top of this you have such occupations as skinning of animals that is forced on them. On the one hand, you force them, and then you tell them you are unclean, so you keep off, and then you get entire labor free. If not for them cleaning and maintaining all these scavenging functions, you would be infested with plagues right around the country, you know, because you've seen also, not just in regular times, even in disaster times, scavenging community has been flown in from different, and then fed with the full alcohol, and then they are made to clean the carcasses. All the military and us, they just sit there and order them around. But even now, the real cleaning is done by the, and so instead of honoring them, instead of paying their
or
due
dignifying
wages,
that work, or dignifying that work.
dignify, professionalize it, open
mechanize
it, you dehumanize them, you abuse them, and if they refuse and if they stand up for their dignity, you beat them like what has happened in the UN, in Una. That's one side. On the other side is also the same side of the coin, the other side of the coin. What do? If some of the people like Judge Ramakrishna, like Rohit Vemla, like several other people whom you have also
Senthil Kumar, you had 10 students.
Senthil Kumar
10
and
students
all
in 10
the
years.
students who have been like these Roorkee IIT students who have been rusticated because they have not managed to make a certain grade in the IITs. Now, what's happening when they escape and challenge and they begin to appropriate on their own accord, whether in the universities, whether as students, whether as lecturers, whether as judges or others, then force is, backlash violence is unleashed against them, crushing them and then destroying their whole humanity as it were, and then taking them back to centuries, again, you know, keeping them in that thing. I think this is the real heinousness of the caste system, which I think we need to.
What do you make of Prime Minister Modi's statement, shoot me, kill me?
I don't know. Somebody was saying this, the same words that were used by Hitler at some point when somebody in the initial stages told them. Hitler also seemed to have said, shoot me and not the Dalits, not the Jews. I don't know what it means. Why does he need to have such big words? I mean, I'm glad at least he has done, because command responsibility has to say something. But now everything is at his command. Easily, immediately, all those who are forced into these occupations must be given off. It should be made like any other occupation. Let government issue or call for tenders and say these are the works, like just like have your other things.
You know, I'm asking a question which is tricky, because in around 2001 we had the Jhajjar incident, you know, the terrible incident, and we happen to have NDA 1 in power. We have NDA 2 in power. Now, obviously, we know that whether there's a Congress government, UP, or the atrocities against Dalits have not stopped. But it appears to an objective political analyst that when you have a force like the RSS in power, because the BJP is just a parliamentary phase, you have the RSS in power, which is inherently based on a ideological belief that a hierarchical caste structure is what the way Hindu Rashtra should be, the way, not the Indian constitution, though they try to appropriate Baba Saheb Ambedkar. Do you feel it gets worse, more heinous and more callous under this kind of regime, or is it just gets flagged more?
See, we were quite disappointed at the time when the whole Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Act, so much work has been done, you were also a part of it, and then we tried to put it on, and then the then Congress government has refused to pass it. Now, Now, I don't understand that. Okay. Then the other hand, the current NDA government has really
Passed it very
seized
quickly.
upon the
They
whole
passed it
thing and
quickly.
passed it quick. Now, but then having said that, I think there are two things. The Congress government, at least proclamations are there, and then you could hang on to those proclamations, you can challenge them, and then you can do, and there is some sense of, and immediately there will be a few dismissals. Of course, there also it was a little difficult, but few dismissals and some kind of an action. But I must say that in Haryana, we were extremely disappointed even during the Congress regime that the
spate of those attacks on girls and women, yeah.
The whole Jat character of the Congress government has really ran haywire and just could not contain that. But here, what is worse is, I think even at the wider environment, even in terms of proclamations, it's too little too late, and sometimes going the other way, saying in terms of the whole Gaurakshak kind of a thing, giving it almost a sacred place in the whole human rights, animal rights, human rights. You just cannot see to what extent ideologically it has come down.
You think that Dalit consciousness is rising against this in a political way?
In a way,
because reserve seats, the BJP has actually managed to capture a lot of the reserve seats in parliament.
The political, in one sense, the political climate has gone overall more to the fundamentalist. Whichever is the government, I think they have gone to the right of the total framework, and this is a global phenomena you are seeing. But also, never before a conversation, a dialogue in the wider society has caused, and this has been brought by Rohit Vemla, by the challenge Rohit Vemla first of all, and also for the way in which the Una Dalit community, the parents and all, I mean it's tremendous the way that they are able to raise and question.
I find there's also amazing clarity among the youth, the young leaders, whether it is Jignesh Mevani or Mehul Chawda, etc., or of course Rohit Vemula, Donta Prashant and others, whose clarity on the political dimensions of the entire thing, very, very clear.
Bold. I think, somewhere you feel that the fear of their dependence on any political masters has been cut. So, therefore, they are able to actually foist their demands much higher than anybody else.
Coming to your earlier work in Andhra Pradesh, I'm talking about 2001, 2004, even 1991, when you observed the centenary of Baba Saheb, and you had actually done a statewide campaign under the Dalit Bahujan Shramik Union on the whole issue of annihilation of caste. You've always had this caste consciousness in you. How would you see that today, and how would you see the future of the organized left movement vis-a-vis recognition of the caste structure of class oppression in this country?
I think each region or continent, if you have to say, has got some kind of how would you say Achilles heels which they get stuck into. And I think wherever you see, whether it's the gender struggles, whether it's a struggle for human rights, whether it's a struggle for liberation of land and all that landed gentry and all that, there is an element of caste which somehow has woven through all these aspects. And I think India has led fantastic amount of spearheading in these struggles, not just in the country but also globally. But where I think there is a major gap that we are not able to overcome, we could not address the layer that the dehumanization which the caste and the caste systems have, which have got a stranglehold on several of these issues. That interlinkage we have not managed to break, and that you see it in the trade union movement, that you see in the whole land and land rights movement, you see it in the gender, and of course, caste is also the movements of caste we are linked to many of these, both development, literacy, health, and several of these issues, governance, which I think is a very critical aspect that we need to unpeel. And when we started, I was one of the founding members of the Andhra Pradesh Vyavasaya Kuli Samakya, which has been formed with a very clear left perspective. One day, we went, and suddenly there was a death of, his name is Bugaya, I still remember, it was in 1983. July, and then suddenly there were two types of opinions that have come. One person said that no, that's an issue, it's an illicit relationships, and you got into him, and it's a different thing, and so of course it was a murder, but let's not take into it. And then other group said, no, this Bugaya is the one who has been challenging the atrocities, has been challenging the lesser wages to the Dalits within the union, and we must take these issues up. Then we didn't realize it, then immediately, of course, they had burnt the body and all that. Then I do not know if you've heard of this person by name Geeta Ramaswamy and Cyril Reddy. You know, these two were very inspiring people at the time, and then with their help, we got the district administration and the superintendent of police to exhume the body and started. But that time, the entire union split into two. We had on this issue, because there were poor agricultural workers from Reddy community who were also part, and the person who perpetrated this particular crime was another Reddy. So they stuck to the caste relationship, and all the Dalit laborers were pushed to a side and they were abused. We were then named as Naxalites and all this, of course, and Geeta were all labeled, but then we stuck through, and then we saw that without touching and addressing the caste issue, if you take agricultural workers, if you take land, if you take bonded labor, that was the time when Mr. Sesar Sankaran also did this whole work on the bonded labor. When these were, if you alienate the caste and then deal with these issues as though caste was not one of the things which played a fundamental impact on these, then we would miss the point.
Paul, I've also heard you say at a seminar recently where you spoke about this very interesting paradigm that we've had very, very vibrant struggles. We've had struggles from Bengal to Odisha to Andhra to Kerala, Maharashtra, where you've had Adivasis, Dalits central to those struggles, whether it's the Baga struggle, you name many struggles. But you said somewhere, and I remember that really sticking in my head, that when it came to participation in wider struggles, democratic struggles, Dalits and Adivasis were a huge component of those struggles. But when it came to quote unquote their struggles being waged, the wider other community was absent. Could you just explain that?
Yes, I do not know. This is not to undercut the power and the legitimacy and the credibility of those movements, but I wish I can bring those references immediately. But there was a study of Tebaga, there was the study of Telangana arms struggle, and in both these they have shown Tebaga is Kurmi Koir Yadav conglomerate, and their issues were really the Tebaga was in Bengal, the Kurmi Koir Yadav Trisang
and Telangana. That's the one you referred to.
These three, the issues that were brought by those who are either associated with productive assets like animals or land, and those which were brought by those who are landless, who are mostly the Dalits, the response of the movement has been very different. This was primarily the the postulation. So, both in the Tebaga and the Trisang and the Telangana armed struggle, after the issue of recording the land transfers in Tebaga, after the issue of Yadav and Kurmi Koir families, atrocities that were committed by the feudal Brahmin landlords at that time, and then the Trisang, the Telangana armed struggle of the Dora, the feudal lords versus the agricultural Reddy communities. The other layer, which is the bonded labor, and they were waging the movement against the bonded labor system, vetti chakri they call it in Telugu. And here, of course, similarly the Musahar and other communities in Bihar, and in Tebaga also those who have been landless and their wages, the entire movement, whether it's the United Communist Party in Telangana armed struggle or in some other in West Bengal and thing, has come to a standstill. So, the power they had, and it's not that these people did not support the struggles of the Tebaga or the Trisang movements. They did, but when their issues of abolition of vetti chakri, which is by the bonded labor, and the others, there was no takers, because there the entire other dominant society almost merged together, and by default they said that we are not going to act and this is going to hurt us. And somewhere I think what we need to learn is, and maybe the lesson for us in Una, the lesson for us in Hyderabad Central University and several other places where the Dalits are waging struggle is, I think, can we backtrack on what had happened then and learn and then see that how these are not just struggles of the Dalits, these are struggles for humanization of our entire society.
What you're basically saying is that obviously you're making a big distinction between the politics of the right and the left, and obviously the politics of the right is much more dehumanizing and demeaning because it creates othering and enemies in many ways. But even the politics of the liberal and the left, where all these fault lines have appeared and there have been all these lacunae, this is the point at which in Indian politics and Indian social, there could be a rethink. How will that happen?
If that rethink is not there, I think the earlier victims who had cried hoarse are going to be perpetrators in all this. I think that realization will have to come. If you don't look at what you're doing to your own domestic help, your own people who are involved in scavenging, the vast amount of the children who are really, there is no need for us to segregate my children from the children of those who come from the thing, because at that university they are together and we are not able to rise over those differences. I think it is these who will have to come together. I don't know what coinage will do, what kind of ism or ideology, but I think Ambedkar to a large extent has that, but we will need to, I think, we need to pin it with the current realities and then refuel it.
To end on a slightly more hopeful note, I don't know if you know, but on 27th of July 2016 in Narodapatia, the scene of one of the worst massacres of 2002, or the worst massacre of 2002, about 250 or 300 Dalits took out a silent march. They had banners, they had candles, and all that the march said was Dalit Muslim unity.
So I think these will have to really weave together, and we see that happening in some way, I think, in Una and others, and saying, and I really, even you, a person who has worked, I think you have continuously messed and woven together both the communal and the caste angle. But I think that is where you have to crack the code at that level. If you think you missed that, then you have lost it. So really, all strength to you and your.
And hope that you will be there in Rajkot on 31st August. Yeah. Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks so much for having this conversation.